What's up, garden nerds? Today I'm going to teach you how to hand pollinate your corn. And make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to give you an update on my three sisters planting method and let you know how it's going. Come on, let's go. All right guys, here I am in front of my very small corn patch. You can see it's not that big, but I'm going to teach you how you can hand pollinate your corn if you're growing in very small quantities like I am. Get the best corn production possible. Now, if plants having sex or reproducing makes you uncomfortable, this video might make you uncomfortable. But if plants reproducing gets you excited, you're gonna love the video. So stick around, come on, let's talk about hand pollinating your corn. So the first thing to know when we're talking about pollinating corn is not pollinated by insects, by bees, like a lot of other fruit-producing trees are, or plants or vegetables are. Corn is pollinated by the wind. So when you have huge fields of corn with tons and tons of rows, it's very easy for the wind to come through and to pollinate all of that. There's tons of pollen in the air because there's tons of corn. But like I said, when you're growing in a very small area here, like most people that grow in their backyard do, the wind most likely will not be sufficient. So that's why we're talking about hand pollinating your corn. A lot of times in the gardening groups and forums that I'm in, I see people that post a picture, they have their ear of corn and there's like 5 kernels on it. The rest is just nothing. And they say, what did I do wrong? Well, you didn't pollinate your corn. So in order to stop that from happening, I'm gonna show you one way. For me, it's the easiest way, most simplest way, straightforward way, but I'll also talk about 2 other ways, but I'm gonna show you one specific way that I do it and that you can easily do without having to know a lot about corn and pollinating corn. All right, so let's talk about the different parts of the corn so you know what you're doing. We're gonna talk about the male and the female part. Here's where it might get a little uncomfortable. So up here, all of this that you see, this is the male part. This is the tassel. And all these little pieces, these are anthers. And you can see, I don't know if you can tell in the camera, but some of them have a little tint of yellow, like right here. That means those are freshly loaded with pollen. That's where the pollen comes from. That's the male part. Now, if we come down here, this is a good place to look at. This is the female part. This is the silk, which leads to the actual ear of corn that you can see is forming right here. Now, here's the crazy part when it comes to all of these individual hairs. Each and every one of these hairs is connected to a kernel down in the ear. So if one of these does not get pollinated, then that means we will be missing one kernel on the ear of corn down here. So every single piece of hair needs to be pollinated. All right, and from the time that the silks emerge, you have about 10 days to get them pollinated. After that, you probably missed your window, and if you haven't pollinated them correctly, your ear of corn is not gonna form correctly. Now, a lot of people say that early in the mornings, early to mid-morning is the best time to collect pollen, and the evening time. Now, in a perfect world, you shouldn't have to do this. And if you notice, if you come here, you can see, I don't know how well the camera is gonna pick this up, but you can see the anthers that have fallen right here. You can see them, and you can see and feel the pollen that has fallen down. So in a perfect world, it's gonna produce pollen, the wind's gonna come through, it's gonna slightly blow it, it's gonna fall down onto the silk. That's in a perfect world. Fortunately, we don't live in a perfect world, especially like I mentioned, when we're growing a small amount of corn. So here is what we do. Here's how we help the corn have sex. So you can simply come and you wanna pick one of these anthers. You wanna be gentle because it's loaded with pollen. Simply take it off. This is the male part of the corn. And then we simply come down here to the female part. This is loaded with pollen. And we simply load it up, get all that pollen all over every single one of those hairs. Remember, every single one of those corresponds to a kernel. If it doesn't get pollinated, you're gonna miss a kernel. I'll come back here to this one and I'll do the same. Now they say, and I'm not sure if this is true, but they say you can know that it's pollinated once these hairs turn a little pinkish. You can see here, they are a little pinkish. That may be a way to tell, I'm not sure. I haven't verified that myself, but that's what they say. And another way that a lot of people do it is they come out with like a paper plate or a piece of construction paper, maybe one that's black so that you can see the contrast in the pollen, and they simply hold it under these anthers and they tap them, and you can't see it very well, but that puts the pollen in the air, and then it drops down onto that piece of paper. And then they can take that piece of paper, they have the pollen, they can come down here and they can put it on to the silk. Another way, which I don't do because I like to kind of make sure that I'm getting it right, another way is just to come out here and to create the wind yourself. You can see as I shake it, anthers and pollen are going everywhere, and like I said, the end goal is to have that fall down and to pollinate the silks. All right, and then once you make sure that you've done that correctly, you can actually do that multiple times throughout the 10 days to make sure that, again, every single piece of silk has been pollinated. So you don't just have to do it one time. You can do it every day if you want for the 10 days. You can do it every other day. The more you do it, the more likely you're gonna have good success and get a full ear of corn. After that 10 days, you'll see the silk, it will actually dry up and it will look brown and almost dead, kind of like it looks when you buy your own ears of corn from the store. It will look like that. Again, after that time, you can't pollinate, and from the time it turns brown and dries, you have about 2 weeks or so, and then your corn is ready to eat, to pick and to eat. So that is a very simple video about how you can and should hand pollinate your corn to make sure you have maximum corn production. All right, so I promised you guys an update on my three sisters' garden. You can see here, if we back up a little bit, this isn't a very tall variety of corn, but it's getting tall enough. After a few weeks, once the corn got going, I came in here and I planted beans, and you can see this bean is growing up very tall. It's growing taller than the corn. So that is going very well, and there's a lot down here. It's kind of coming on the ground as well. And after that started going, I planted, as you can see right here, the squash. So the squash is getting going as well. It's acting as a good ground cover. Perfect timing as well, because here in Arizona, it is like 115. I think it's gonna get to 118 this week. So it's perfect that I have the ground cover. If you come over here and you look, you really can't see the ground that well, and that's because it's covered in beans, marigolds, and squash. So it keeps that moisture in there, which is good for the plants, and it also reduces the watering. So Native Americans have it right. It's working very well. 2, 3, 4 weeks from now that it's getting really hot, I think this is gonna explode even more, and it's gonna be a jungle in here of squash, corn, and beans. So this is how it's going. I promised you my update. If you guys have a better way to hand pollinate corn, because I know there's thousands of ways, probably not thousands, I know there's dozens of ways that people do it. The way I do it, like I said, is probably the easiest for me. If you have a better way or a more effective way, put it in the comments below, let me know, and maybe I'll make a video about it. Guys, as always, thank you for watching. I love making these videos because it gives me someone to talk to about my garden. If you would, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me so much. And please like the video, and I will see you in the next video.